Hello everyone. This weekend we go back to English book reading. The book I'm going to recommend today is titled Finite and Infinite Games. It's quite an old book, published in 1987. The author of the book is James Carse, the then director of religious studies at New York University. Now, why would I recommend a book that is published more than 30 years ago? Partially because this book is highly praised by thought leaders like Kevin Kelly, who wrote the hit book Out of Control, and also by Chinese internet giant Wang Xing, who owns Meituan.com. But more importantly, it's because I think the book provides a tremendous framework to think about the life we're going to live, the choice we're going to make, and ultimately, how do you define and achieve success with your own term? The author opens the book by stating the definition of the two games. There are at least two kinds of games. One could be called finite, the other infinite. A finite game is played for the purpose of winning, an infinite game for the purpose of continuing the play. Now, that sounds very thought-provoking. Let's look deeper into the differences of the two games. The author keeps saying, finite games have rules and time frames. There are players and there are observers in an established field of play. The rules for the game are set and generally known by the players. Someone is designated as referee to judge how well you play by the rules. It is easy to see who wins. After the game, no one argues about the score. The object of the game is to get the highest score so you win. Infinite games, on the other hand, are more open and less defined. The rules of the game are not constant. They change all the time, and there are no external judges or referees. The players are accountable to themselves and each other for their behavior in the game. Ultimately, the rules of the game are devised to keep the game going infinitely. According to Carse, finite players play within boundaries. Infinite players play with boundaries. The difference of the two mindsets could be profoundly different. For example, what do you do after you win a finite game? You have to sign yourself up for another one, and you must find a way to showcase your past winnings. Finite players have to parade around their wealth and status. Carse argues that these players spend their time in the past because that's where their winning is. Infinite players, by contrast, look to the future. Because their goal is to keep the game going, they focus less on what happened and put more effort into figuring out what's possible. They're unconcerned with the maintenance and display of past status. They're more concerned with positioning themselves to deal effectively with whatever challenges come up. Now, based on these two arguments, how you play the game of life will define the learning you pursue. Finite players need training. Infinite players need education. Why? According to the author, to be prepared against surprise is to be trained. To be prepared for surprise is to be educated. If you play life as a finite game, you train for the rules. If life is instead an infinite game, you focus on being educated to adapt to unknowns. You may think this is similar to another paradigm in learning theory, fixed minds versus growth mindset. But they're different. Fixed versus growth mindsets determine whether a learner believes his or her basic abilities, intelligence, and talents are fixed traits, or they believe their abilities and intelligence can be developed with effort, learning, and persistence. But the fixed versus growth mindsets framework can be cross-referenced with the finite versus infinite game framework. For example, if you are a gamer in a finite game with fixed mindset, you're almost bound to lose a lot of games because this one-time game is set by your belief that you are good or bad at it. Whereas more likely, if you're a good gamer with a growth mindset in a finite game, you can certainly be trained as you develop and master all the skills necessary to win that one-time game. But ultimately, what I'm trying to inspire you to become is a person with growth mindset and find yourself in an infinite game. Why? I will quote directly from the book again to answer that question. Because infinite players prepare themselves to be surprised by the future. They play in complete openness. It is not an openness as in candor, but an openness as in vulnerability. It is not a matter of exposing one's unchanging identity, the true self that has always been, but a way of exposing one's ceaseless growth, the dynamic self that has yet to be. Find the book on Amazon, and I hope you will enjoy it. It's a book full of wit, epigrams, and you even find it echo lots of Taoism and Zen wisdom, only from a Western culture point of view. Happy reading. See you next weekend.